All right, hey everybody. All right, we're going to start learning some new material. All right, what we're going to do first is we're going to learn about the metric system. And it's going to work almost exactly like you did the English system before spring break. So you're going to have to learn the conversion factors, all right, for metric. And the only thing you have to remember is 10. Okay, you've memorized all the conversions for the metric system now. The only conversion is 10. As opposed to the English system where there's lots of numbers. Okay, just like with the English system, when you go big to small, you're going to multiply. When you go small to big, you're going to divide. All right, I've got a whiteboard ordered, but of course you can imagine Amazon's a little backed up with shipping. So we're going to do it a little different and see how this works. I'm going to try to share a PowerPoint with you. Okay, so what's going to happen is I'm going to move kind of to the upper right-hand screen. All right, and then my PowerPoint's going to come up if everything goes according to plan. So let's just cross our fingers and beg Jesus. All right, here we go. Let's see if it's going to work. Oh, look at there. Yay, yay, yay. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to learn to do the metric system. Okay, so the first thing I want you to notice is this. Okay, when you're doing length in the metric system, you're going to use a unit called a meter. All right, remember in the English system, when you did length, you used like inches and feet and yards and miles. Okay, so a meter compares to about a yard in the English system. So when you get your students, you're going to want to give them something to kind of wrap their minds around. So remember, we go from what we know to what we don't know. So they usually cover the English system before they cover the metric system. In every room, in every classroom, there's a door. And so it's got a doorknob on it. So you can show them from a doorknob down to the floor is about a yard. So from a doorknob down to a floor is about a meter. Okay, so we'll talk about some other things here in a minute. But notice the prefixes. All right, I'm going from big down to small. Okay, so the biggest one that we're going to talk about, not the biggest one that there is a kilometer. Some people say kilometer. Then a little smaller is a hectometer, and then a decameter, and then there's your meter, and then a decimeter, and a centimeter, and a millimeter. All right, let's see if I can get a pointer instead of that little thing. Okay, so remember I told you all you have to know is the number 10. So here's what I mean. There are 10 millimeters in a centimeter. There are 10 centimeters in a decimeter. There are 10 decimeters in a meter. 10 meters equals 1 decameter. 10 decameters is a hectometer, and 10 hectometers is a kilometer. All right, so remember 10. So this list goes from big down to small. And notice the prefixes all have an M because they're based on meters. So a kilometer's km, hectometers hm, and so forth. Now, notice the potential problem of decameter and decimeter because they both start with a D. So what they did is dm is the smaller one. All right, the bigger one, decameter, is either dkm or dam. Some books do dk, some do da. When you take school, I'd advise you to use DK. It's just DAM. It's just too funny if you're about 10 years old. Okay. So notice the bigger one has the more letters. The smaller one has fewer letters. Okay. Now, when you're doing weight, remember in the English system, they'd be like pounds and ounces and tons. Well, in the metric system, it's based on a gram. Now, gram would be if you got a paper clip and you held one paper clip. It's a very light measurement. Okay. So that's about a gram. Just like before, notice the prefixes are the same as they were for the lengths. Kilo, hecto, deca, and then the smaller ones are deci, centa, and milli. Notice the abbreviations have G's instead of M's. So kilometer was km, kilogram is kg. Same thing. 10 milligrams is a centigram, 10 centigrams, a decigram, and so forth. Okay. Capacity, when you're going to measure how much something holds, you use liters. Now, you know what a 2-liter Coke is, so half of that would be 1 liter. So you know what a liter looks like, okay? So notice the prefixes are the same, kilo, hecto, deca, and so forth. But naturally, since it's a liter, you've got L's here instead of G's or M's. Okay, now we're going to kind of talk about something in a minute about you know, some English comparisons for kids to kind of get their minds wrapped around, but let's talk about how you're going to work the problems. Okay, so let's get the pointer off and then let's go to the next slide, I hope. Okay, now notice what I did. All right, I basically just wrote the prefixes down because the prefixes are the same whether you're doing length or capacity or weight. Okay, and they're big to small, so kilo, hecta, deca, and then if you're doing weight, it would be gram, capacity is liter, length is meter, and then deci, centa, and milli. Now, just like before with the English system, when you're going big to small, you're going to multiply, and small to big, you're going to divide. Now, we're going to talk about a shortcut kind of in a minute as well. But notice, when you're going big to small, you're going down the stairs. Okay, see, down the stairs. And notice, when you're going down, you're kind of going to the right. So what ends up happening is when you multiply, the decimal moves to the right. So that's going to match. When you're going small to big, you're going up the steps. See, up the steps. And you're dividing, and think about it, when you're dividing, that decimal is going to move to the left, and sure enough, you're kind of moving to the left when you go up the steps. So look at this example. 2 4/10 meters is how many centimeters? Now remember, you're going from number to blank, so meter to centimeter would be big to small, so that's why I multiplied. Now notice it says count how many steps you move, not how many you're on, but how many you move. So if you start on meter and you walked down the steps to centimeter, you'd walk down 1, 2 steps. So that's why it's 10 to the 2, okay? And then notice 10 to the second is 100. When the power is a 2, you got 2 zeros. And so 2 4/10 times 100 is 240. But remember, when you're multiplying by 10 to the positive 2, it's going to move the decimal 2 to the right. That's kind of your shortcut. So it'd go around 1, 2, so you'd be at 240. Okay? All right, so let me make sure we're clear about one other thing, just to clarify something. Remember I told you that 1 meter, all right, was 10 decimeters. All right, and then 1 decimeter is 10 centimeters. So notice, 1 meter would be 10 decimeters. Okay, well, see, every decimeter would have 10 centimeters in it. So this decimeter would have 10 centimeters, this decimeter would have 10 centimeters, and so forth. So do you see that in 1 meter, since each of these 10 would have 10, 1 meter would be 100 centimeters, not 20 centimeters. So, you know, 10 to the second isn't going to be 20, it's going to be 100. Okay, so that's kind of why that decimal moves the way that it does. Okay, so let's work a few more. All right, if I'm going from centigram to decagram, all right, centa to deca. All right, see, centa is right here, and then deca's up here, so I'm going small to big, so see, I'm going to divide. I'm also going up the stairs, all right? So how many steps would you move? Okay, here's centa, so I move 1, 2, 3 steps. So that's why it's 10 to the 3. All right, so 10 to the third, remember, is 1,000. When the power is 3, you have 3 zeros. And when you take this number and you divide by 1,000 on your calculator, it gives you that answer. Okay, if you didn't have your calculator, remember, a quick way would be when you divide by 1,000, it moves the decimal 3 places to the left. So you go around 1, you still have to go around 2 more. So that's where those 2 zeros come from. All right, look at here. I'm doing liters, so it'd be liters. All right, so kiloliters. All right, that should say milliliter, not millimeter. I need to fix that. All right, so I'll fix it before I kind of post it, hopefully. Now, so what's going, because you would never go from a liter to a meter. That's just a misprint. All right, so pretend that says ML instead of MM. Okay, so kilo to milli. Let's see how many steps we go. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's why it's 10 to the 6th. All right. You're coming down the steps, so that's big to small, so you multiply. So 10 to the 6 is the million, so when you take that number multiplied by a million, it moves the decimal 6 places to the right and you get that answer. All right, look at this one. We're going hectometer to deci, not deca. Remember, the 2 is the smaller one. All right, so if I start at hecto and go to deca, I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3. So again, that's why there's a 3. All right. When you're coming down the steps, you're going big to small, and that's when we multiply. So when you take this number and multiply by 1,000, it moves the decimal 3 places to the right. So that's why you get that answer. All right, is that making sense? Down the steps, you're multiplying. Up the steps, you're dividing. Now let's go back one more thing real quick before we stop. Okay. Back here. One of the things I do want you to do is try to figure out some things, Google and try to find some things that kids can kind of hook this to. Like, think about it. There are 100 meters in a hectometer. Remember, they're 2 apart. So 10 to the second would be 100. Remember, a meter is about a yard. So what do most kids know that's about 100 yards long? Think about it. Yeah, a football field. So a hectometer is about the length of a football field. All right, a decameter, 10 meters in a decameter. Decameter is about the length of a school bus. Okay. Centimeter is about the width of their pointer finger. Okay. A millimeter is about how thick a dime is. Okay. So that's kind of something they can hook it to that they know. So if you were to stack 10 dimes up, that'd be about the width of your finger. So 10 millimeters is a centimeter. All right, so you kind of look and see if you can find examples on the internet for maybe what a kilogram would kind of be, how much that would weigh, maybe a centigram. All right, same thing with capacity. See if you can find an example a kid would understand for like a kiloliter, maybe, and a centiliter and a milliliter. All right, I'm gonna put some homework on Moodle. All right, well, actually, it's already there. You just do the bottom half of that worksheet I gave you before spring break. All right, and the answers are already up. You know, I already gave that to you, so you should have the worksheet and the answers. So you try that and let me know how it goes. All right, bye.